Hi teachers, thank you for joining me for a quick training video today. And firstly, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your passion for what you do, for investing in our students each week. And secondly, I want to encourage you to keep going forward with it. Keep investing in our students. Each week you have 45 minutes to an hour here in the building to invest in our kids, plus the time that you take outside praying for them, preparing your lessons, letters, phone calls, whatever it may be, where you are investing in the students' lives. Now, you may not always see the results in what you're doing. As we've talked about many times, children's ministries is a future fruits ministry, where the work we invest into them today, the results of it isn't seen until later on. Well, I want to encourage you today. I actually get to see some of the results and hear about it. I spend far more time with the kids with the different lessons and the times throughout the week in my job, and I get to hear them talk about what they've learned in their classes. I get to see what you've done with them. So I just want to encourage you today to keep going forward with what you're doing, and I appreciate it. And back at the end of 2016, I gave you a piece of paper that talked about our plans for 2017. And on that, I talked about the theme, building the future. And our plan as teachers this year, and our theme and goal, is going to be investing in kids to prepare them to be future leaders that we need. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to invest in our kids to train them to be the leaders we need them to be? Well, today I want to start with a simple thing. Looking at our children and seeing that they live in a world that's selfish. They live in a world that teaches them me, give me first, and all about them. A self-centered world for sure. That world has an impact on them far more than we get to each week. So what we're investing in them, we have to make sure we are doing our best to combat what the world is teaching these kids, to be self-centered. So how can we do that? How can we take kids that are taught and seen and exposed to a self-centered world and teach them to be servants? In order to be the leader that God wants them to be, they're going to have to learn how to be a servant. And I think through biblical training, we can do that. And a simple outline called IDEAL. And that is to identify, develop, encourage, align, and then lead. I'm going to take a few minutes this morning and look at each of those letters and see how we can apply that in our classes to help train our children to build the future, to be the leaders by being the servants that God wants them to be. The first letter is I, and that is identify. Identify a servant's heart in your students. Teaching students what it means to have a servant's heart. Although we as teachers deal with selfish students at times, there is a heart of servanthood in there that we just need to nurture and help cultivate. So, how can we do that? How do we identify a servant's heart? How do we teach our kids what a heart of a servant looks like? Well, we have to go to the perfect example, and that is Christ. Christ is the perfect example for us of a servant. He leaves his throne. He leaves his Father's side. He humbles himself to come to this world, take on a form of man, and serve man, and then ultimately gives his life for man. Mark 10:45 says, "For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." A servant is simply one who looks unto the needs of others and to put the others' needs above themselves. So how do we serve? Well, Jesus served by healing the sick. He fed the hungry. He spoke with children. He washed the feet of his friends, and ultimately he gave his life. He looked for the needs of others so that he could meet them. Now, on that list, there are some that we cannot do as servants, nor our children. But the example of serving others is clear. Christ made it a point to serve others. His heart's desire was for others. Why do we serve? Ephesians 6:7 says, with good will doing service as to the Lord, not unto men. Christ gave us the example to serve others. Now, when I serve others, I don't serve them for their benefit. I serve them because it's an act unto God. It's what God would have me to do, as if I'm doing it for God himself. That is why I serve. Everything that we do should be as if we're doing it unto God. When to serve. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. We should always be looking for the opportunity to serve. We should always be looking for the opportunity to where my life can be a service to somebody else. So first thing we need to do as teachers is to help identify what a servant's heart looks like. What does a servant do? A servant looks unto others, to put others before themselves. Now it sounds backwards in this world, and it's contradictory to this world's teachings, but it's exactly what God would have us to do. Help our students identify what a servant's heart looks like. And once they begin to see what our heart looks like, then we can go on to the next letter, which is D. And that's develop. Develop a servant's heart in your students. The first thing Jesus said to his disciples, the disciples the men that were going to be disciples, when he first saw them, he said what? Follow me. He was going to be an example to them as he served. And developing a servant's heart in our children will first consist of this: us being an example, us being servants. Jesus was a servant. He showed his disciples. He helped develop that servant's heart in his disciples by the work that he had done. He had shown them what it meant to serve. John 13:15 says, for I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. That was the day that he washed the feet of his disciples. Now, at that point in time, the disciples begin to understand who he was. And he sat down and he had some time with his disciples, had a meal with them. And following his meal, he got up and he went over and he got the wash basin and the cloth and he began to wash the feet of his disciples. And Peter flipped out. He said, you can't do that. You're Jesus. And he said, no, Peter, I must do this. He says, I'm showing you the example of what it means to serve others. And Jesus, the Savior of this world, knelt down and washed the feet of another man. Why did he do that? To help develop the heart of a servant in his disciples. Not only will you teach your students in word, but also in example. To develop the heart of a servant in our students, they must see us be servants ourselves. They must see us look unto the needs of others. Then it brings us to E, encourage. Encourage a servant's heart in the students. Be a cheerleader. We hear it all the time here at Haven Arrest. be a cheerleader. Encourage those that are around us. This works in adults, but it's vital for kids to be encouraged. It's so important for them to feel that they have approval of what they've been doing. They want to know what they're doing is right. They want to know what they're doing has a purpose. What they are doing is appreciated, and that their efforts are important. And when you see your students serving, praise them, encourage them, make an example of the efforts that they have made, and show others. Encourage them to keep going. Tell them they're doing an awesome job. Tell them how important it is of what they're doing. Let them know that what they have done is important and appreciated. I love to see the little kids' faces in here. When they do something, you say good job to them or thank you. You were a big help. Their faces light up. Why? Because they've been encouraged. And that spawns them to do what? Keep going. To do it again. To do more. Because they've realized what they're doing is important and it is appreciated. So if we're going to develop a servant's heart in our kids, then we have to let them know what they're doing is working. And when they're serving, to praise them for what they've done. Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Edify, lift up, encourage. That is our job. Cheerleaders, clap our hands, praise them, lift them up, let them know they're doing a great job. Encourage them to be servants. And then align. Align your students' heart with opportunities to serve. Provide opportunities for your students to be servants, to serve others. Use them in your classrooms. Use them to clean up, set up, help you prepare. Not only is it a great benefit for them, it's a benefit to you. It makes your life a little bit easier each week. Assign things for your kids to do each week. Someone's job could be to set up the chairs, to put away the craft supplies, to put away the toys in your room, to get the books out, to get the Bibles, whatever it may be. If someone has a job to do, they can own that opportunity and allow them to have an opportunity to serve. Give them that opportunity. I remember a few months back, I was sitting out in the auditorium waiting before, it was a Friday night, I was going to preach, and Jen and Jerry Volpe had come a few minutes early that night, and we were talking, and Jacob was there. And Jacob was 4 at the time, maybe just turning 4, actually. And he had gone around and he had picked up the pens in the auditorium. And Jen turned to me, she's the pastor, says, oh, look at Jacob. He has a little ministry. He likes to pick up the pens. And this little kid loved going around, picking up the pens, putting them back in the chairs or putting them back in a pile in the basket in the back of the room. She said he would come into the church and he would do this all the time. So she began to give him the opportunity to serve. And even at 4 years old, Jacob took joy in doing a simple little task, all because he was afforded the opportunity. Providing your students with opportunities to serve will only excite them to become more of a servant. Now, Daniel Beckway is another one. He asked me if he could be a helper in junior church. As he's gotten older, he went away from being a participant in everything to wanting to be a helper and a leader. So I started to give him some opportunities to do that. And I said, definitely, Dan, I can use you as a helper. And his face lights up. And if you guys know Dan as well as I know, the first place he wanted to help would be the snacks. Exactly. Danny wanted to help out in snacks. And he did. He would go and set up snacks with a couple other students. Well, it got to the point where each week Danny would come in and ask me, "Can I help with snacks? Can I help with snacks?" And I would say, "Yes, Dan, you can go help with snacks. Go ahead." Well, time had gone on, and now he comes to me and says, "Can I be in charge?" I said, "Okay, Dan, you can be in charge." And he wants some of the older kids to stay back and let him lead. He progressed from participating to serving to leading in an area because he was afforded the opportunity. Now he comes to me all the time and says, "Can I be a helper? Can I be a helper?" And I said, "Yes, Dan, you can be a helper." Matter of fact, last night was our Wednesday evening service. We gave our kids opportunity to help. They helped clean up and set up around the building for us. Our anniversary services in a couple weeks. I was in the office getting some work done. Danny comes to me again, and we were talking about the anniversary service. And he says, "I want to help." I said, "Okay, Dan, we have pizza we give to the kids at the service, and we have ice cream we hand out to them, and put on a movie, so you can help." He says, "No, I want to help serve food." I said, "Sure, Dan, you can help serve the pizza." He says, "No, I want to help serve the food out there." He now wants to go into the kitchen and be a servant and be out there and use the opportunity. So I'm going to talk with them and give them the opportunity for Dan to serve somewhere else. He's just excited because he was given the opportunities to serve. Listen, if we provide the opportunities for our kids to serve, they will serve. And when those opportunities come up and they begin to serve, and we praise them and we encourage them, and they're going to continue to grow in it. So provide ways for your students to serve, and it will begin to develop a servant's heart in the student. Then the final letter is L, leading. Leading with a servant's heart. This is the ultimate goal. Our goal is to produce future leaders. By implementing the plan like ideal, we will produce the future leaders that we've been talking about. We'll produce future church leaders, community leaders, and even global leaders. It's our job to train leaders that will one day replace us. And the earlier we begin to invest in our students' hearts, the earlier they'll become the leaders that we need and that God wants to impact the future. I remember growing up in junior church. As just a little boy, I sat in that classroom in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, at Temple Baptist Church. Down in the basement, down the hallway, down in that back room. I went down there every Sunday at 11 o'clock. And Wes Lane was my teacher. Wes Lane was a college student. And as he was going through college, he served at our church. After that, he went on to be a missionary, still today, in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But while he was in school, he taught me in junior church. And I remember that. And then as time went on, I grew up in that church. At 17, I began to help in junior church. And a few years later, Catherine and I took over the children's ministries at that church. A future leader. Because somebody showed me what I meant to serve, helped develop that in it, gave me the opportunity, and ultimately I took over as the leader. I need someone to replace me someday as the children's pastor, as a teacher, as the Sunday school director, as a Wednesday night teacher or a Friday night teacher, as a junior church teacher. I need to train someone to do that, to replace me. I need to develop in somebody a servant's heart to do that. If we look in Deuteronomy chapter 31, the story is the end of Moses' life. And as Moses' life was coming to an end, he was getting to replace himself with the next leader of Israel. And that leader was Joshua. Now Joshua was a servant. He served Moses. But Moses implemented ideal. He implemented this in his ministry with Joshua. He taught Joshua what it was to have a servant's heart. He developed that servant's heart in Joshua. He certainly encouraged Joshua along the way. He aligned Joshua with opportunities to serve. And then ultimately, Joshua took over as the leader. The examples are there throughout the scripture to identify, to develop, to encourage, to align, and ultimately produce a leader. In closing, building the future is our responsibility as teachers. I hope this short meeting has encouraged you to help your students develop a servant's heart. I hope it has encouraged you as a leader to work with your kids closely, to help develop the future leaders, and to remember your work is not in vain. Our students are growing in their faith. They're growing in what they've been taught. And I'm beginning to see it in their actions around the church and in their lives. Keep investing in your students. And thank you again for all that you do. I know it's a sacrifice. Take from your time each week and prepare. Pray, read, study, memorize. Get up early, come, stay late, prepare, all that you do to invest in your kids' lives. But it's not without a purpose. It's not without its rewards. You may not see it right where you are, but it's future ministries. I'm an example of that, of somebody investing in me and teaching me and showing me. And here today, I'm leading other people to do what someone taught me. So someday, somebody can replace me in doing what I'm doing. Thank you again for what you do. Thank you for investing in your kids. The individual time sitting down with talking and praying. The time you spent preparing. It's all for a reason. For building the future. Thank you for investing in the kids. Thank you for what you do for our ministry. Thank you for what you've done already and are continuing to do in your ministry. Until our next video, I look forward to sitting down one-on-one with you, doing some training and talk about and seeing how this is going in your classes, and then to get together as a group and hear feedback. I look forward to these opportunities with you. Thank you again, and God bless.